If it's Wednesday, it must be a Belgian. Tom Bonen wears the yellow jersey today in front of his home fans, while Spain's Alejandro Valverde joins the fans watching at home, out of the Tour with a broken collarbone. As the race rolls back into France finally, we launch the ITV Property Finder service. And for those of you who don't want to relocate permanently, there's our competition prize of a weekend in Paris for the final stage. Good evening. The nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away, as the great Tour de France poet Paul Simon put it. And as the kilometres left to Paris fell steadily yesterday, so did the big names. The biggest of the lot being Alejandro Valverde, one of the race favourites, until a classic first week crash out of nothing left him with the classic rider's injury, a broken collarbone. Valverde had a consolatory visit from a Belgian deity last night, but not even Eddie Merckx can heal fractures, so the Spaniard's second tour is ending just like his first, prematurely.
Las condiciones físicas a la mañana eran espléndidas, a la tarde han cambiado la fractura de clavícula, que ha sido a consecuencia de una caída, como todo el mundo ha podido ver en televisión, ¿no? Esa caída como consecuencia ha traído unas escoriaciones en la rodilla, escoriaciones en el codo y la cadera, sin problemas para su ejercicio de competición, pero se le ha fracturado la clavícula, la mitad de la clavícula, y eso hace que evidentemente tiene que abandonar. Con él abandona las ilusiones y con él abandona muchas cosas y muchas horas de trabajo que ha invertido para intentar demostrar su forma aquí en el Tour.
At least Valverde's was a proper cycling accident. Sandy Cazard seems to have been brought down by the scourge of modern travel, a mobile phone.
Encore trop près des barrières, les gens qui sortent les bras et puis qui nous accrochent au guidon. Avec la fatigue, ça fait des chutes.
Cazard's crash came within the last 3 kilometres, so it didn't lose him any time, but it did leave him with a knee injury, among other scrapes and cuts, all of them thoughtfully pointed out to him by the French reporter as he got into the ambulance. And coming near the end of a long, hard stage, it seems to have hit his morale pretty hard too.
Oui, c'est peut-être la fin du Tour ici. J'espère pas, on verra demain. Pardon.
There's always someone worse off than yourself, though, and yesterday there were several. Eric Decker and Fred Rodriguez came down together. Rodriguez suffered a broken collarbone. Decker took his fall full in the face, both of them abandoned. And the same crash that put Alejandro Valverde out left Stuart O'Grady with a cracked vertebra. He, though, is determined to carry on.
Is it really a good idea to be starting today? I mean, a fractured vertebra is not going to heal overnight, is it?
No, it's not going to heal overnight. It's not going to heal, you know, in the first... It's not going to be better in the first week, but all I can hope for is, you know, both doctors and at the hospital said it was fine. There's no risk of it breaking any further, and it's not an actual part of the vertebrae. So, look, you know, maybe if I can continue and in 10 days' time I can be of use to the team, then, you know, it's the Tour de France. If I can't, then I'll stop straight away.
He's a hard man, Stuart O'Grady, but he's well down the general classification after his fall yesterday. And before we get on with stage 4, let's take a look at how things stand at the top. There we are, Tom Bonen with a 1-second lead over Michael Rogers of T-Mobile, with George Hincapie 5 seconds back in 3rd place, and yesterday's race leader Torhushoff dropping to 4th. Perfect timing by the world champion Bonen, taking the yellow jersey just in time for today's stage start in Belgium. And he's the first Belgian to wear it since Mark Wouters in 2001.
Tom Bonen is a massive star in Belgium, and it's not just amongst cycling fans. His appeal is truly universal. So we thought we'd find out how his morning pans out as he starts in yellow in the first time in the country where he is so popular.
Tom Bonen gets his first victory in the Tour de France.
From the moment he left the hotel at 10 a.m, it was clear this was no ordinary morning. The hour-long bus ride was a chance to talk tactics on the team coach. Then into Huy, where hundreds of fans waited to greet him. At 25, he's young, good-looking and charismatic. He's the world champion and wearing the magical yellow jersey. Boenen mania has swept Belgium to such an extent, he's gained film star status.
Looks like Brad Pitt. He's a very handsome guy with a gorgeous body.
But Boenen is typically modest about his appeal.
What's it like having this support? It'll be nice, I think, during the day. A lot of people who
like cycling in Belgium, and they're all waiting for this. And,
a lot of people who like you in Belgium.
Yeah, also. But it was a big battle getting in yellow for this one stage, and now we'll see how far it goes. But try to defend it.
Boone is typically modest about his appeal, but can he please his fans by keeping yellow today?
Right, there's today's route, 207 kilometres, starting in the Belgian town of Huy and finishing back across the border in France at Saint-Quentin. And there's Burnham braving the start line, Paparazzi. He actually leads the green jersey competition too, but that's being worn today by the man in second place, Daniele Benati. Well, Chris Boardman, some nasty thunderstorms as we drove out of Belgium last night to the finish here. What can the riders expect today?
Well, the riders are facing some subtly more challenging conditions today. They're going to push off from the start, and that crosswind has strengthened slightly. The temperature has dropped. There's even a chance of some showers, and the roads are all pretty much more exposed. So I think we can see some more challenging conditions today.
Well, today's inevitable early breakaway had 5 men in it, and the most interesting of them for us was Bradley Wiggins. With him were 3 Frenchmen, Laurent Lefebvre, Christophe Morjan and Cedric Coutouli, and one of the Spaniards in the Discovery team, Egoy Martinez. Well, Martinez took the honours at the first sprint of the day, and as we join commentary, the breakaway is just approaching the second with 72 kilometres to go, and their lead around the 3.5-minute mark.
Well, just look at this, Paul. The gap at last suddenly starting to come down now, and here we are. This is the sprint. Interesting to see. Martinez again has put himself on the front. The boys are not contesting these sprints, so this will be another 6 seconds bonus for Egoy Martinez, which in theory moves him up to where? He's got 12 seconds now.
Well, moves him up to the same time behind the leader as Floyd Landis, because he will have taken 12 seconds time bonus out on the course today. That makes him 16 seconds down, and that will move him up into 7th place. Very clever. This is like an old tactic we used to see many years ago, adopted by the Soviet Union national team. They used to leapfrog riders up the overall classification on every day, and that seems to be what Johan Brunel is doing, because Johan Brunel currently has got 3rd place with George Hincapie, 5th place with Paolo Salvadelli, and now he's got 7th place with Egoy Martinez. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the teams who've only got one single leader.
And nobody quite knows how Martinez will climb. He does climb pretty well, but a year on with this team, they may have instilled confidence into him. He could be seen as a comparative danger man. And really, other teams should be starting to ride, apart from the sprinters now. They don't want to give any spare time away to somebody like Igor Martinez, who I don't think is extending himself today. Once the peloton catch up, I don't think he'll have any problem holding on.
No, I think he's been cruising. We've been keeping a monitor on his heart rate, and it's been averaging around about 150, which is what you would expect on a stage like this. He hasn't pushed himself right up to the lactic acid threshold position. So he's sometimes, especially on a stage like this, believe it or not, it's actually easier to ride in a breakaway because you can ride at your own tempo, whereas in the main field, if you're sitting on the tail here of the riders from Quick-Step, you can be put under a lot of pressure.
And this is the rear of the field at the moment, and Rabobank without poor old Eric Decker now. Peter Weening at the back, number 59. He's a very good rider too. We'll see more of him, I'm sure, during the week.
Bradley Wiggins at the front, trying to raise the flag for Team Cofidis. Here's number 1, Jose Acevedo, Team Discovery Channel, leading the overall classification of teams. It's very difficult, I'd have to say, just looking at the number 1 on the back of Jose Acevedo to try and decide who's actually going to be the leader of this team, because I think they've got 5 riders who could be the leader of the team, although you're seeing all of them carrying bottles up through the field. I've seen Popovic working, I've seen Azevedo working. These riders, Phil, I would say 5 riders: Azevedo, Hincapie, Martinez, Popovic and Salvadelli could all be winners of the race for Team Discovery Channel.
Well, one guy who spared the duty today of carrying bottles is Bradley Wiggins, Paul, the British rider in that breakaway. In his first Tour de France, he hasn't yet realised the great talent we know he has riding in road races yet, but he has a gold, silver and bronze track medals from Athens, and he's got himself into a breakaway today, and this is going to do his confidence the world of good.
It certainly will. He had his first attempt at a three-day stage race with the Giro d'Italia, and he found that very difficult, but here the Tour is something different, something special. He too, I think, will try and ride well in the individual time trial, although he's lost an awful lot of time in the overall standings, caught out in a lot of the aggression over the first few days of racing. But looking down at the main field, Phil, you can see that Team Quickstep are doing a fabulous job of work here, starting to reduce that advantage, which at one stage was fairly close to the 5-minute margin. But when you see a perfectly straight line like that, you know there's a lot of boys out there crying out to put up the white flag and surrender.
Well, officially it's 3 minutes 40 seconds now, and so that is quite a return from the breakaway at the moment. Igor Martinez, Brad Wiggins, Christophe Mongeon, Laurent Lefebvre, Cedric Coutouille. Martinez is best placed in the breakaway. Wiggins sits 150 seconds, but he's lost almost 10 minutes. That's Bradley now, just putting his hand up. I think he wants a drink, and just coming through confirmation of that 3 minutes 40 time gap. So they're starting to wind them in here. This area of France does abound with these long straight roads, and so once you get within a minute and a half, the pack are going to see you, and that's never a good thing.
Well, the difficult thing about a big race like the Tour de France as well is you've got so much media coverage that very often the peloton will use the helicopter as a guide to see how far away the race is.
Hi, I'm Bradley Wiggins, and you're watching the Tour de France on ITV.
Welcome back to our coverage here, the Tour de France on ITV4. This, of course, is the commentary box. Thanks very much for your emails. But let me also remind you, if you go to our website, there's the address for you. You can also listen to the podcast daily being put on there by Chris Boardman and Matt Rendell. They make good listening too. Right, to the emails, and plenty of your emails ask the same question. How does Paul Sherwin know so much about the chateaux around the Tour route?
This is the Chateau de Saint-Sixte. It was built originally back in the 12th century. It was when it was first put down. It was very heavily restored in 1536, and it's made out of the local limestone, which is a pink limestone, which you'll see from Strasbourg all the way up through this part of the region. Well, I suppose I could say I raced the Tour de France 7 times. I've covered it for 21 years with you, and I read a lot. But in fact, that wouldn't be the truth, because the truth is the race organisers actually put together this book, the Guide Touristique, and it tells you about every chateau, every little piece of history all the way along the race route. And they actually have a full-time person throughout the year to put this information together. Yeah. It makes pretty good reading at night.
It certainly does. Another little secret, by the way, is the fact that way back in 1983, Paul Sherwin won a race right on the same finishing line that we are using today for the Tour de France. It was stage 3 in the 4 days of Dunkirk. All right, well, for those of you planning on buying a property here in Europe, here's a few to choose from. Well, 15 miles or 25 kilometers still to go to the race now. These boys, the adrenaline will be pumping now, especially through Bradley Wiggins here. He's never been this close to success on the stage of the Tour de France. A little rise here. The crowds are getting bigger, the enthusiasm, and the gap, I'm afraid, Paul, is getting smaller.
Coming down, 1 minute and 22 seconds now. Wiggins must be thinking, well, shall I have a go now? Because he's the kind of rider who could take clear, and if he's got any energy left in those legs, maybe perform the surprise like Jose Luis Arrieta almost came up with yesterday. Luis Arrieta moving away from that group on the run in towards the finish, and I think if there hadn't been the Cowberg at the finish, the Spaniard may well have caused a bit of a surprise.
I think he would have got there, but he was just unlucky. At least he got the most aggressive rider of the day. Which is something, I suppose, but he wanted the stage win, of course. These are the riders now. They're trying to, I think on these little hills which are coming, these undulations, we should see the gaps come down reasonably quickly now.
They will take 5 seconds off that group every time the road starts to go uphill a fraction. I just caught a glimpse of Michael Rogers up to the front end of the main field. He is 1 second off the overall lead and probably feeling very confident with a big time trial coming up at the weekend. because Michael Rogers, in fact, took time out, Phil, to go and have a look at the time trial course. He's riding fairly comfortably in the main field. His heart rate's around about 70% of his maximum at 154 beats a minute. In an individual time trial like the one at the weekend, he will keep his heart rate up to around about 175 for an hour.
Not too far away from Michael Rogers, Paul, though, was Stuart O'Grady, who's got this nasty little fracture of his fourth vertebrae. So although he's in terrible pain, and he said it this morning, the pain was bad, that's a terrific effort to be up near the front.
Stewie's a tough character. He always has been a tough bike rider, comes from a very hard upbringing on the track, once regarded as one of the most talented track cyclists in the world. Over the last few years at the Tour de France, he's really made our screens exciting as well, wearing the green jersey, wearing the yellow jersey, and of course taking out a couple of stage victories. But there is the man who has made the season vibrate so far this year in the yellow jersey there, Tom Boonen. Tornado Tom, they call him in Belgium. He really is fast. He's phenomenal when he gets going. He hasn't quite got it yet right in the Tour de France. I think today might be his day.
It reminds me, Paul, I had an email overnight from Australia, and they were talking about Robbie McEwen, and they said, well, over here in Australia we refer to Robbie as the Pimpernel. You see him here, you see him there, but you never see him for the last 100 metres of the finish, and then he wins. And that's a very good description of him.
It certainly is. I much prefer your one with the invisible cloak of Harry Potter.
Well, the tempo has visibly increased now. The gap is just over 1 minute, so the catch isn't far away. 69 seconds. Tom Boonen looking to see his teammate come up alongside him here, takes a drink off him, saying thanks very much. That is his lead-out man these days, Matteo Tosato. Still no panic, no big rush to the front, he's just letting it happen.
Well, he lost Matteo Tosato the other day because Matteo Tosato was caught up in that little crash on the run in towards the finish, and that might have affected Tom. Still a very forested area here, the valley over to the left-hand side, the valley of the Loise, the river that meanders through this part of northern France before finally getting into the River Seine at Conflans-Saint-Honoré. And still a great job being done by Tom's men. This is Pozzato coming up to the front, and they're getting a lot of help from Davide Monlotto. But again, they are leaving it right down to the very last moment. I think that last estimation we had of getting that leading group pulled in at 23 seconds might be a fraction out.
23 kilometres.
23 kilometres. I think now we're probably looking at the catch being closer to 15 kilometres to go.
Well, we can't be that far away, actually. Then we're about... have we seen the 20 kilometres go, Banner? No, we're looking for that now. So it's about 3 or 4 kilometres in. Well, at the moment, they're coming on to the 1 minute gap now. And the rides at the back, no part for them to play in the Tour today, except hang on and try and get into the finish same time. Remember, all the big group, if they cross the line together, are given the same time. If they didn't split time, of course, the man at the back would try to get to the front. It would be an almighty carnage, so they get the same time.
Well, I don't know if you noticed number 155 there just at the back. That was Sébastien Joly. He was a rider who actually yesterday was involved in a crash himself and then managed to get back into the main field. And Philippe Gilbert, the sprinter of the Française des Jeux, who almost got onto the wheel of Matthias Kessler, actually passed his bike over to Philippe Gilbert on the run in towards the finish. And I think that may be why Philippe Gilbert couldn't quite hang on to the wheel of Matthias Kessler.
It's a great effort by both riders, but Kessler had it in the end, and he was deserving of the win, of course.
Well, making the same move 2 days in a row is very rare in the sport of professional cycling.
You'd have thought the peloton had learned by now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I think when he went pretty hard, and everyone kind of looked the other way and thought, well, we'll chase him down a bit later on.
Yes.
Too late.
Yeah, well, yes, it was a hard finish, great finish yesterday in Kouwberg, and as always, the Dutch, it took over 2.5 hours to filter away from the finishing line yesterday for the spectators. There were so many of them there. The race never loses its popularity, and it always seems more popular when it goes out of France. Belgium, Holland, the Netherlands have all seen this. Next year, of course, the Tour de France goes to London for the big depart, first time in its history, and it will see all the famous sights of the city of London. So these are the boys up front. The latest gap is just on 1 minute and 10 coming to our earphones.
So this banner will indicate 20 kilometers to go for the leading group of 5 riders. So I'm expecting this to all come back together around about 15 kilometers to go as these riders now go through the small town of Bernot, which is just in the very heart of the valley of the River Loise. This is Couturier at the back, Mangin in front, Bradley Wiggins in the blue shorts, then in front of him Egoy Martinez, who has made the best operation here this afternoon, because in the town here of Vernoux, we shouldn't be too far away from the final sprint point of the day, and that is at 19 kilometers to go. It may well be that at this point, and this is going to be rather interesting because there is no challenge at all here, and Egoy Martinez gets the next time bonus. So on the day he's garnered himself 18 seconds in time bonuses. That takes him up to 10 seconds down overall, or 5th place.
Hi, I'm Jens Vogt and you're watching the Tour de France on ITV.
We're coming in now to the very much flatter part of the course. All of the King of the Mountains points behind us, all of the sprint bonus points behind us. So now it's very much a question of survival for this leading group of 5. They are hoping that somebody makes a mistake tactically, but the sprinters very rarely do, especially when they know it's an ideal sprint finish for them.
Well, the coolest looking man in this breakaway is number 4 of Team Discovery, and that's Egoy Martinez. He's won all of the bonuses today with sprints which were really not contested. So he got 18 seconds. He now sits 5th overall in the race. He'll have the strength, I'm sure, to hang on if the bunch do catch up.
He's never looked under any pressure at all, the man in the blue and grey jersey there. He looks excellent. There you can just see the special cranks and chain ring he's got on there. That is a special machine actually used to measure the output wattage. Bradley Wiggins at the back, starting to puff and wheeze a fraction as we go over these slight inclines on the run into the outskirts of Saint-Quentin. These riders wondering, can we survive? Will the sprinters make a mistake here this afternoon, or will we manage to hold off and run out and try and get the overall victory on today's stage at least? Wiggins looking at the gap, sees the gap forming there, accelerates to get onto the back wheel of the man who's just accelerated, Laurent Lefebvre, who just the other day had his 30th birthday, by the way. That was on the 2nd day of the Tour de France, and it looks as if there's been a problem. There has been a crash at the back here once again on the run in towards the finish. Riders are touching wheels and going down. This is all because of the fact that everybody's nervous. The panic there in the orange jerseys would indicate that the man who's had a problem there is Iban Mayo. He is the man who had a flat tire yesterday, and it looks as if it is Iban Mayo. There it is, 121. Teammate pushing him off there, making sure that he gets himself back into the main field. His teammate who pushed him off there was Inigo Landelouz.
That's amazing, Paul. Same point almost as on the course yesterday. Mayo in trouble again. Virtually all Spanish riders stopping there.
Well, a number of riders from Caisse d'Epargne, Lille Barrière is going down, but Iban Mayo, Phil, is obviously not riding at the front end of the main field. Yesterday's problem was a flat tyre. Today it was being in a mundane crash at the back end of the main field. Just as they were taking that right-hand corner a few moments to go, he was caught up in that little incident. You really do have to ride in the first 15 or 20 places, because what happens is riders tend to brake going into the corner, and when that happens, somebody touches a wheel.
Well, I think Mayo himself, you know, hit the barriers there. He's right on tight on the inside of that bend, and that wasn't a good place to be at the moment. But the team recognized it, and they were quickly on the scene.
Another popular rider here involved in that accident, Vicente Garcia Acosta. He went down quite hard. He's not too worried about losing time this afternoon. His major goal is not to finish high in the overall classification, but maybe try and get himself a stage victory. He won on the French national holiday a couple of years ago on Bastille Day on the road down into Draguignan. Got a teammate coming up alongside him. This man also had a problem. That's Isaac Galvez. He's the sprinter on the squad for Team Caisse d'Epargne, and he's trying to make sure that he gets back up. You can see he's ripped his shorts a fraction. He obviously went down quite hard. Looking to see where Garcia Acosta is. But the problem is, when you have an accident at this point of the game, the pressure is on in the main field, and it's very difficult to catch back to the pack. There are the leading group of 5, and when you pull back like this, it's always an indication that there is the main field. The time gap they're giving us is 40 seconds, but I make that 30.
Well, this is the horrible part now. These straight roads, you can see 40 seconds, no problem. They can now see the quarry, probably the first time they've seen them for nearly 200 kilometres again today. Long breakaway by Wiggins as well. Tremendous riding by him. He'll be a different rider hopefully now for the next 3 weeks. He's got his confidence. Here comes a man who's found himself on the defensive at the wrong time of the day. Number 121, Iban Mayo, riding the bicycle now of Inigo Landaluza, the man who sacrificed it to get the leader back in the race.
Well, this man I thought was on the crest of his form this season. We've seen him riding so much better, had the form that he had a couple of years ago when we expected him to challenge Lance Armstrong. And again, almost the whole of this Euskaltel-Euskadi team have dropped back to pace him back into the main field because we are so close to the finish. You don't want an accident like this 10 or 15 kilometres to go, because in the main field, Phil, they are riding 60 kilometres an hour.
Well, at least they've got into the tail of the cars. This is good news now. And in fact, if you take a good look at Iban Mayo here, just to the right of our picture, he looks pretty comfortable on that bike of Landaluzi's. So clearly Landaluz was the man who had to sacrifice. That's the rule. And there's been an attack in the breakaway anyway. This is now attempting here to split up the breakaway. It looks as though it's Kutui of the Aggerturbel team who's trying to go. Wiggins a bit slow to react, I think, because I think he's behind. Yes, he is, so he's going to have to try and react to this. He's obviously very tired.
Well, I think he also looked over his shoulders there and saw the whole of the main field boring down upon these riders. There's Christophe Mongin, 11th Tour de France for him. He knows now that once the main field gets down to 30 seconds, it's pretty much all over, bar the shouting. These 3 riders have managed to escape a fraction from the guys who were with them. But if we can look back over their shoulders, we will see a black mass of riders all over the road boring down upon them.
Well, there's always those that never give up, of course. Here comes the army now as they're driving on from the helicopter. You can see the cars at the top of the picture. That is the breakaway, the lone figures in between now. The lone figure there of Bradley Wiggins. And in fact, he's now been joined by Mongin. I think they've surrendered, but the other 3 haven't. They're going to try and hang on here and go for it.
Well, they'll hold on for as long as they can, but that banner there now indicates 10 kilometres to go to the finish. The sign there indicating Saint-Quentin, so they're not far away from the outskirts of the finishing time. This is Kutui, the man who launched that first move. On the front there for Team Discovery, wearing number 4, is Egoy Martinez. 10 kilometres to go now for what is just 3 leaders, but they hold a 30-second advantage now over the front end of the main field. The main field spreading out over the road. Iban Mayo, just going down in a nasty crash, has regained the peloton. There he is. He was very quickly given a bicycle by his teammate Inigo Landaluz, but he has managed to make the juncture. And as yesterday, he was put under pressure because of a mechanical incident very close to the finish. The main field now are waiting to pause, to try and launch the attack to pull back the rest of that group.
Ciao, sono Daniele Bennati, guardate il Tour de France su ITV.
Well, the sprinters certainly have no excuses today. Wide, straight roads culminating in this rise to the line that can't quite work out whether it's a drag or a climb. Either way, it's going to make life difficult for the fast men's teams, because they're going to have to get to this point in sufficient numbers and sufficiently strong to not get swamped in the final 500 metres. For my money, I think it's a poker player's finish for somebody who's prepared to leave it really late. Well, you've got the clearly motivated Tom Boonen, but Robbie McEwen's also got to be in the frame. Or it could go to somebody who's prepared to attack in that final 2 kilometres. Well, if I had to put my neck on the line, which I suppose I do, I think I'd say Robbie McEwen. So let's go back to the racing and find out.
Well, the lead of these 5 riders, we're now down to 3, has never been more all day than approximately 3 kilometres, slightly less than 2 miles lead ahead of the pack. They never let them escape. They've chased consistently. Now that gap is a matter of 50 to 100 yards or metres to Bradley Wiggins here and Christophe Mongin. But the other two, who knows? Because back in the pack now, they are not working quite as hard as that breakaway. Vyacheslav Ekimov's heart rate, we're looking on the computer, is amazing. It's only beating at 108 beats per minute. The man is making no effort at all.
Well, the man in the leading group for the same team, the Team Discovery, Martinez, his heart rate is up fraction below 190 beats a minute, 188. He is almost full on maximum, and he's now decided he's got to give it everything. And the teams of the sprinters, Phil, are playing a very dangerous game of poker. They want to see which team is going to assume the responsibility of setting up the train.
Well, the situation now as they run into the last 8 kilometers of the day. The riders here just not really appreciating the great atmosphere on the roadside, because these are desperate moments now. Igor Martinez, with his bonuses along the road, has moved himself up to 5th overall in the Tour de France, but he must hang on to that pack if they do catch them, because of course he'll lose real time if he gets tailed off. Well, there's the picture they don't want to see. All of the Tour de France on the horizon. The Tour de France has seen them as well. Most of the cars have been taken out now. Just a neutral service and the chief referee of the race behind them. These 3 riders, almost another 5 hours in the saddle at the moment, by the way, and it will be over 5 hours when they get through to the finish. Igor Martinez, Laurent Lefebvre, and the new boy on the block here, Cedric Coutui, who is in this leading break. Desperate dash for the finish now, the hare and the hounds.
Well, the main field and the sprinters need to get their teams organised, because this gap was down to about 20 seconds. It's just stretched out now to the half-minute mark, and that would indicate the sprinters are really playing a very dangerous game. And in fact, it's Liquigas have decided to come to the front, because they reckon their man Paolini could be the man to come up with the goods this afternoon.
We are now 7.5 kilometres from the finish, and look at this now. Big Magnus Backstedt from Cardiff in South Wales. He's a Swede, of course. He's driving this race. He once won Paris-Roubaix. This year he's been injured, but now his job is to get the Liquigas boys up to those 3 riders and put Luca Paolini in with a chance of a win. And look at the speed, 65, 70 kilometres an hour.
We are looking at 45 miles an hour, and these riders all of a sudden, Phil, have thought we might have outfoxed the sprinters here this afternoon. And look at Martinez on the front. This little incline is going to give him an advantage. He's generating maximum power. Cedric Couturier, look at the face. He said, oh, this really hurts. I want to stay in contact, because if I can maybe survive and get a 3rd place on the stage. Look at the face now of Lefebvre. These men are suffering out there. They have still managed to hold on to a 27-second advantage. The sprinters may well have made a mistake.
170 kilometres, about 110 miles. These riders have led the race today. Just a little bit more energy required before the finish and the run in here, but they're all after them now. Here comes Robbie Hunter of the Phonak team. He jumped coming up alongside Magnus Backstedt. Oscar Frere's boys of Rabobank are moving in.
This now is going to be a real charge of the Light Brigade once we get into the outskirts of Saint-Quentin. 3 leaders, 5 kilometres to go, 25 seconds. Theoretically, it's not possible, but sometimes, you know, theory doesn't come into practice.
Well, they are in desperate motion at the back now, because you can see they are in panic mode, because no one team is driving. They're all trying to get up there. They've suddenly realised that these boys, who are supposed to be tired by now, have suddenly found a second wind. There's Filippo Pozzardo. He hasn't dropped off today. He stayed up near the front. Eric Zabel's Milram team are here in the light blue. They're all searching for help here, and you know they are not making an impression at the moment.
George Hincapie moving up on the left-hand side, Team Discovery. He's going to keep a close eye on how this race develops at the front. I also saw Nicolas Jalabert from Team Phonak. He's looking after his man Floyd Landis. Landis won't get involved in the sprint this afternoon, but he doesn't want to get involved in a crash. The safest place to be, 15th to 20th. Try and stay out of trouble.
Well, now look at the riders fanning out. There is Bone, and he's just wondering just how he's going to get through here, because the rider in front of him in the green jersey is Daniele Bernardi. He's chosen a good wheel here, and also on his shoulder the other big sprinter, Thor Hushovd. So 3 of the big sprinters still in a bad position, but at least they're all together.
They are still very much all together, looking at each other. They're pulling out the red car now. That's always a bad sign. Bit of a blow for the morale, but these guys have got to keep going. The clock is ticking against them. It's down to 17 seconds. There's Big Tom, 101 in the yellow jersey. There in front of him, Thor Hushovd is going through now. He's got his men to the front, wants to get them lined out, wants to get get into that final corner. There's only one dangerous part of this last 3 kilometers as far as I can remember, and it is this large traffic circle. After that, there's a right-hand bend, and it's a 1 kilometer straight climb up the Boulevard La Gambetta.
But just around the corner at about 200 meters is where you actually see the line. I wonder if this man will ever remember anything about the passage of the Tour de France. There they go, lining up again, a chance to reposition the big names now. They are still not totally committed. They are a little bit confused. They're trying to reorganize themselves.
Team Discovery coming to the front, not to chase, but to slow down and maybe give the advantage for just another couple of seconds. Couturier suffering there, not able to take the acceleration of Laurent Lefebvre. Lefebvre, 30 years of age on Sunday last, has now been joined by Martinez. They are still holding on to just 7 seconds advantage. They're inside the outskirts now of Saint-Quentin, but you know the main field are all behind them. Martinez at the moment, Phil, is developing an incredible 800 watts. That is power.
That is power, Paul. He's running at 93 of his stress out of 100, and his heart suddenly shot up. He's tickling 200. He's in the red zone, but he is giving maximum effort now because these two are trying to steal the show from the sprinters. But it is a very difficult hill to the finish, and that itself could destroy the hopes of these two.
It could destroy the hopes of these two. Look at that. It's only about 75 meters advantage. The men at the front of the main field now are digging deep, trying to pull it all back together. Still 8 seconds advantage. They'll be looking up the road now to see, can I see the Flamme Rouge? Can I see the red kite? Is it there? Indicating just 1,000 meters to go to the finish. The main field now are starting to get very much under control. Moving up there, 107 Brand Tanking is trying to make sure that the field is stretched out for his man, and his man is Tom Boonen. This is what it's like at the back. It's very dangerous. You are on the edge of your saddle now, trying to stay in contact with the riders in front, while at the front the teams of the sprinters are sacrificing themselves to try and make sure they can pull it all back together.
And there we can see too that the heartbeat of Vyacheslav Yekimov is also up a little bit now to an amazing 157. But these two are racing towards the finish now, and they are heading. It looks as though there might be a flat tyre here for number 181. That'll be Eric Zabel. Is there a flat tyre for Zabel? I think it might be. It looked at 2 kilometers to go. And the two leaders, it is a flat tyre for Zabel. What a time to get that. They are caught, and they are caught at 2 kilometers from the finish now. Now the team of Daniele Bonatti have got to the front. Now we are into the domain of the sprinters, the men with no fear. They'll search for the leaders. These are the tricky moments now. Thank heavens on that bend the roads are dry.
Everybody's round the corner now trying to get them lined up. Poor old Eric Zabel, 181 at the back with a back wheel flat tyre. He won't be going for the sprint here this afternoon. Tom Boonen will be, though. He'll be looking to try and position himself. David Miller is right up there. This is the back of the pack. This is Eric Zabel. No chance for him this afternoon, but the action is really basically all at the front end of the field.
Well, that is a tragedy for Eric Zabel. There's no way now. He's out of the hunt, back to the front of the race. Boonen in that yellow jersey, beginning to move ever nearer the front now. Watch out for the Pimpernel, Robbie McEwen, who won't be far away. Neither will Thor Hushovd here. 1 kilometer to go. The sprinters have got to the sharp end now.
It's a very long 1 kilometer, this one, because it drags up and up until the riders get into the finishing straight. The final bend is around about 150 meters to go, and that's when you have to wait. Tom Boonen is a long way back there, but it might be an advantage here this afternoon. You can see the sprint is starting. It's Crédit Agricole at the front, and they will be trying to look after their man, Thor Hushovd. Bonatti is in well placed, but so too is Tom Boonen, making his way up through the pack.
Well, Boonen knows this finish. He's going to wait until he has to go. Bonatti is the one in the green points jersey in the centre of our picture at the moment. They're allowing the riders of Crédit Agricole make a move at the moment. Remember, this is a long run up the hill, then they have a left flick down to the finish. Boonen and Bonatti look to be going for this one together. Jimmy Casper is still there in the white, and there's a fall in the middle. I don't know what happened there, but everybody got round the situation. That's a Crédit Agricole rider who went down. It might have been Hushovd. I think it could have been, or it could have been Robbie McEwen, who's coming up on the outside, and now we've got McEwen has got it again. McEwen has got it again as he hits the line. Robbie scores the points today, and I think the return of the green jersey is destined tonight for the shoulders of Robbie McEwen. And who was the crash at the bottom of the road? And I
Julian Dean went down.
It was poor Julian Dean, the sprinter. I thought for a moment it was Thor Hushovd, but it was the big sprinter Julian Dean from New Zealand who went down, and Gerard Porte here is rushing up now to check on him. He was lucky nobody else fell.
Well, you've got to hand it to Robbie McEwen. You don't know where he is, but he's there, first place across the finish line once again. Win number 2 for Robbie McEwen here at the Tour de France this afternoon. And just look at the power this man generates coming up to the line there. Boonen was caught out in the middle. He was battling to try and get the wheel of McEwen. Didn't have the power, in the wrong place once again here this afternoon. I don't even think Tom Boonen made a top 5 at the end of the day, but McEwen came through the chaos. All of it was behind him and got the win.
What a great win for McEwen.
It was, but another dramatic episode in the daily soap opera of Tour Hushov's race to date. While the rest of us were watching either McEwen or the crash involving Julian Dean, the finish line judges were looking here, where Française des Jeux Bernhard Eisel in white is trying to squeeze through on the barrier. And Hushov, in the opinion of the commissaires, is illegally impeding him. So instead of 4th on the stage, he was relegated to 148th. That left the result looking like this. McEwen first, Isaac Galvez, who was involved in that crash with about 15 kilometres to go, recovering well to take second. And even with Hushov relegated, Tom Boonen able to manage no better than 4th behind Oscar Freire. Most of the rest of the names that matter were in the main group on the same time as the winner, including Hushov, even though he's relegated to the back of the bunch. Bradley Wiggins, though, paid for all that effort out front today, coming in next to last, nearly 3 minutes down. A good early move by Bradley, but the move of the day was undoubtedly Robbie McEwen's late one. Here's Chris to break it down.
Well, 400 metres still to go. We've circled Steegman and McEwen for you, so you can see just how far back that they still are. At the other end of affairs, you can see Crédit Agricole. They've almost got it together, but they're running out of men, and they haven't factored in this gradient. McEwen has, and that's why he's left it so late. He's ignoring the other riders. He's doing his own thing. He's using Steegman like a guided missile to take him around the outside. He doesn't even notice it when Julian Dean comes down. All the other riders, well, he took them by surprise, and when he's ready, he just launches the attack, and there's nothing they can do about it. Boonen was almost in the right place, and he launches his attack too, but he runs out of steam incredibly early and has passed before the line.
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, the plan was always to do it exactly like we did, but plans don't always work in the Tour de France, but it just went exactly to the letter. The boys rode on the front from the 100-kilometre mark, and you know, we lost Fred Rodriguez yesterday, and you know, I knew I'd be missing him, but I tried to use Gert Steegmans in Freddie's position. I just guided him in the whole way. I just kept talking to him, just said, stay where we are, stay out of the wind, wait for the last kilometre. And I told him he's got to imagine that 200 to go is his finish line, and to do a sprint that he can get to there. So he went to go early. I wooed him up. He then went from 400. I took off at 200 just in that little bend, and I died 1,000 deaths on the way to the line, but still made it. For me, it's not about the numbers. It's nice to get another one. 10 is, it sounds pretty good, yeah, I'll admit that. But today, this one's especially for Freddie Rodriguez, because he crashed really badly yesterday. And, you know, he had to go home this morning. He's out of the Tour. And so I dedicate this one to Fred.
Crédit Agricole's Julian Dean is lucky not to have teammates trying to win in his memory tomorrow. Looking one way, leaning the other, but not going down so heavily in the end that he was unable to roll over the line, albeit slowly and painfully. And of course, since he crashed in the final 3 kilometres, all he lost was blood, not time. Well, his stated aim coming into the Tour was stage wins, not the green jersey. But of course, if you win enough stages, the green jersey comes automatically. And Robbie McEwen has now overtaken Tom Boonen in the points competition. But not in the general classification, although Robbie is now back in the top 6. And Igor Martinez is there for the first time after his breakaway exploit today. The top 4, though, remains unchanged from this morning. Behind them, the time gaps are all pretty much as you were too. What has changed from this morning is Tom Boonen's film star grin. His second yellow jersey of the Tour might as well have been second in the school leg and spoon race from his expression on the podium. And afterwards, he invoked the superstar's right to silence. Bradley Wiggins, though, was happy to talk about his Tour de France away day.
Yeah, I was pleased to be up the road, but just typical French, you know, they love to sit on, don't pull their weight, and then attack for the whole cinema of the whole thing at the end of the race. So 10k to go. We'd have been better 5, but still, with the tough finish that it was, rolling roads like that, headwind, we'd have been better off just staying together. We might have got to the finish, but when I saw when he attacked the Agri-Tubel guy at 12, I think it was 12k to go, I hesitated a bit with the FDJ guy, and we sort of looked at each other, and neither of us went, and it was 50, 60 metres, and that was it then.
Right, it was your first taste of attacking at the Tour de France. How did it feel?
Yeah, it was nice. I said this morning to a few guys I was going to give it a nudge today and try and get stuck in, and yeah, it worked. I managed to stay in the front the first 20k and get away, and it was a hard day though. Block headwind all day as well, which made it just that bit harder. So we got caught later on than I expected as well. I thought they'd have brought us back a bit earlier, but I don't know. Just Tour de France now, I suppose.
Good to see Bradley Wiggins stretching his legs out at the front of the race, and we'll be hearing from him again, most likely on Friday, reflecting on the first week of his debut tour. More from Bradley and the stage in general, incidentally, on today's podcast. You'll find that on the website at itv.com/tour, and that's also where you'll find details of the competition. What we want to know is who won the green jersey competition in last year's Tour de France, and here are your options. A. Thor Hushovd, B. Michael Rasmussen, and C. Lance Armstrong. Now you can either call us with the answer on 09012 93 33 93, or text the word Tour and either A, B or C to 63337. First prize is a weekend for two in Paris with tickets for the final stage of the tour. Copies of Matt Rendell's biography of Marco Pantani for 5 runners-up. Entries cost £1, by the way, and the lines are open until midnight this coming Saturday. Now then, tomorrow, Stage 5 takes the tour about as close to the UK as it ever gets. Beauvais to Caen, which is handy for most channel crossings if you feel about a 24-hour flu coming on that might just keep you off work. If you can't be there in person, though, we'll have the highlights for you as usual on ITV4 at 7 o'clock. See you then.